Good morning, everyone. My name is Teresa Conroy-Roth, and I'm absolutely excited today to introduce you to John Riley on the latest episode of Lightning Leadership. John and I have worked together for many years. I trust him, I know him, I respect him, and I really think he's someone that you should know. John Riley. The question comes down to, what have you learned being a leader?
Well, thanks for asking, Teresa. And first of all, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. Certainly an old friend and coworker, someone I have a high degree of respect for. So I appreciate being invited to your show.
Yes, thank you.
Uh,
Thank you. Goes
yeah,
right back to you, man. Right back to you.
absolutely. So let's just kick it right in with that first question.
That's a doozy.
Yeah, things I've learned as a leader. So I will tell you, I am fortunate. When I think back to my career, I've had some good coaches and some good
Yeah.
mentors, right? And so the first thing that I think of is something that I learned directly, quite candidly, directly from a coach who gave me some good advice that I wasn't looking for, but it was very helpful. So one of the first things that comes to mind for me is a lesson I learned a long time ago, which is, a key to my success or where my success is deeply rooted, quite frankly, is based upon the team around me. And I can share kind of an example with you. Early in my career, when we started our own company 15, 20 years ago, I was very fortunate to have some success at a new client where we landed a pretty large deal. And at the time, it was one of the largest deals we ever won. I was very grateful for the trust that that client placed within us. But I was full of pride and I was patting myself on the back and just giving myself all kinds of credit for how hard I worked and how successful I was in this deal. And I was very quickly reminded that that only happened because of the people around me, the team that I was fortunate to have, the team that I presented to the client. They were the ones that earned the trust that got us that opportunity.
Yeah.
And sure, I was a part of it, but I was not the number one reason. And although I've always considered myself to be a fairly humble guy, I had this moment where I thought, I got a little over my skis there because it's not all about me; it's about the team. And I've held that lesson ever since. In every every win, every success I've had since then, I still actually think back to that moment and remind myself, I'm just the fortunate spokesperson for a great team that I've got.
That's awesome. So you talked about humbleness, right? And how that was one of those, I think those, sometimes it's you walk into it with it, but most of the time you learn it, right? And I look at values, right? And I think about just the core values that you have that you've kind of learned along the way, or maybe you've just done the reflection and realized that you had them all along. Tell me about values and how important they are in leadership.
So, yes, I think some of that, is kind of a personal thing, right? Each individual
Very
has
much so.
different values. And, I think a lot of people would say some of the same things like around honesty and integrity. Those are absolutely things that I hold true. And I think, Teresa, you've even seen that, right?
I have
You've seen,
many
you,
times.
you've experienced cases with me where I won't share information with you, even though we're on the same team, because I value the confidence that
Amen.
someone else placed in me.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, one thought that comes to mind, and again, I think this is a fairly common trait, but it's something that I truly try to demonstrate every day. And I have, in fact, I have a recent example. But I truly believe that it's important to treat everyone with respect, and it's important to think about and appreciate the journeys that other folks have had, successes and failures, and
Yes.
where they are in their career and where they are in life, and not measure. The last thing I do is measure myself or people around me by title, right? Because
Mm.
people are on different journeys, have got different challenges. But I try to extend that. I think it's fairly obvious or intuitive to say, well, of course, you got to treat your clients that way. And sure, but treat our coworkers that way.
Yeah.
I really try to extend that to um, friends, to business partners, to service professionals that help us, whether it's,
Mhm.
I got my shoes shined at an airport recently, and I had a really great conversation with that person, and I learned a little bit about him, and he was a great guy, and
Yeah.
he was very happy. Um, he he was very proud of the thousands of people that he has provided that service to at the airport over, I think, a decade. I thought it was
Well,
really cool.
you and I have been through conferences together, right? And one of the things that I love about you is that you've never met a stranger, right? You can talk to pretty much anybody, and be open, be conversationable, and treat them no matter who they are or what their title is, right? I've seen you do it, and I admire that about you. I really do, because it's I think it's an art, but it's also a level of number one, being yourself. And I think naturally you're a phenomenal person, so that helps. But I think you really do have, no, I do. I think you really do have that gift. And so,
And Trace, this is the part that may be unusual.
mhm.
I do the same for people that I view as competitors,
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, they're still people, right? They're out there working to support a family just like I am.
yeah,
Um, you never know what the future holds. Paths cross, people
they do.
change.
They do.
They're people, right? So
Yeah,
I think, and it's something I'm actually very proud of, right? I think back to some things I've done or experienced through my career, head to head with competitors, and at the end of the day, we shake hands, and it's like, you know what, life's short, and we're both out there trying to do good things for our
yeah.
clients, our coworkers, our families. That's okay.
So talk to me about. I mean, I this whole session, these whole lightning leadership talks are really about lessons learned, right? And how it can help people both. Some of them are business, some of them are technology, but it's really about learning, right? So what have you learned about yourself over the many years that you've been not only a leader, but a father and a coworker and a neighbor?
Well, first of all, I feel like I consistently take a practical and pragmatic approach to the work that I do. Um, I, I have big ideas, but I feel like I'm able to boil them down into defining approaches that work.
Okay.
They're not always maybe the most elegant, or maybe not always textbook methodology.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've developed a skill where I'm able to understand a client environment and kind of figure out the culture and even the personality, or
Yeah.
personalities
Okay.
of, right, and
Yeah.
and figure out a way that works for folks. Um, I've learned I am a bit of an entrepreneur,
Good
and
deal.
I've had a little bit of a competitive streak, but
Okay.
I think I'm able to use it as a motivator and a driver without being, too overbearing. Um,
Agreed. Agreed.
Learned I'm terrible at office politics. Uh,
Me
I,
too.
uh, and I think that's one of the reasons I landed in consulting and have stayed here most of my career. But I've had a couple journeys outside of consulting and industry, and I learned very quickly that I'm just not good at that. Um, I feel like I've got this mindset where I feel like if I do the right thing, or what I think is the right thing, and try to do that every day, and put my clients' success above my own,
Yeah,
the rest of it kind of works out.
it really does. It really does. And I those are great lessons. As you talk about, and I'm going to throw you off here.
Sure.
When did you first realize that you were a leader? What was your zap moment?
Oh gosh. You know, I can think of a couple times, and again, I've had some great coaches along the way, but I will. I will acknowledge there were probably times in my career where um, maybe a coach was in my way, right?
Ooh,
We'd been working with some people for such a long period of time and kind of settled in a role
yeah,
where it's kind of like, until you get put into the game, you may not realize or your full potential, right?
yeah.
But I can remember some moments, and there's a couple in particular at one of my clients where at some point along the way, right, the other leaders were gone and I was in that position.
Hmm.
And some of it kind of came with confidence, but I can remember one meeting in particular where I just felt like I'd given a presentation. I prepped for it, which I think made a
Hmm.
big difference. But I gave a presentation. I felt it went very successfully. I got some positive feedback, but I kind of had this aha moment, like, you know what? I got this.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and when you start to you know think back to your experience, and although you'd say, you know what, I'm not perfect and I never will be, but when you start to think about it and you realize, but I have been doing this for 30 years and I've
yeah,
I've seen a lot, I've
yeah,
done a lot, you start to realize I can lean into that, right? And you enter the next experience with a certain degree of confidence.
yeah,
And I think that it can set a tone in a room, it can instill confidence in the team around you, and it instills confidence in your client, right? And you know, you never say you're going to get it all right because we never do, right?
yeah,
But when you lean into the experience that you have and pause, and when you face a challenge, you think back and ask yourself, okay, well, where have I seen this before, and how did we
hmm,
handle it?
hmm,
And maybe what mistakes did we make so we don't make those again? But also what led to success. I think that culminates into leadership that you can help to drive teams.
awesome. I have one more question, and this
Sure.
is this is a good one. That's again not a question that you've heard or we've talked about. I respect so much of what you do with preparation. And I'd love for you to talk about maybe just a few minutes on preparation versus execution. And tell me where you see that particular ratio as it relates to
Huh.
business. Because
Well,
I would call you the king of prep, and I so admire you about it.
well,
Because for all the right reasons, but it's just to tell me a little bit about that and how important that is to you.
I would love to sit here and tell you that I am prepared 100% of the time, right? The reality is, uh, I can't and I don't. Some of it is circumstance and a busy schedule.
Yeah,
Some of it is even I have to turn it off once in a while and go for a walk, or spend time with the family, and it may come at the expense of maybe being super prepared for my first meeting tomorrow morning.
yeah,
Um, but again, when I am deliberate with making the time to just think through, and some of it's getting your thoughts organized, some of it's asking, take 15 minutes and anticipate what questions might I get. Now, I didn't anticipate that one, but anticipating, especially if you're entering into a client discussion, right? Or it's like turning checkers into chess, right? It's like, what if I were on the other side of this table and I was listening to this presentation,
yeah.
what questions might I have? And you're never going to anticipate them all, right? But if you actually take the time to just put yourself in your client's shoes or your coworker shoes, or um, your business partner's shoes, and you hear what you're about to present,
Yeah.
and you think about it, you'd be surprised. It's not too difficult to start asking, you're to coming up with, what are the challenges, what am I going to get challenged on with this message or this recommendation.
Awesome. John Riley, thank you so much for coming on Lightning Real Leadership. For those interested in learning more about John, check him out on LinkedIn. And with that, I will let you go. John Riley, wishing you nothing but the best. Thank you
Thank you,
so much.
Teresa. Have a great day.
All right, bye.
Bye bye.